y'all, staff. Great to have everybody on the virtual call today. It is Wednesday, April 8th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I would like to call the City Commission of the City of Tallahassee meeting to order virtually and the CRA board meeting virtually. I'll walk you through that in just a second. First of all, glad everybody is safe and healthy and doing well. I want to thank staff for everything that you're doing to keep the municipal services up and running. And I know we'll have a long conversation in a little bit. We are recording. Before we get started, I have a statement to read into the record that was provided by the city attorney. Mayor Pro Tem, I will need a motion at the end of this statement just to formalize it into the record. So if you don't mind, I will be calling on you to make a motion.
Absolutely.
On March 20th, 2020, the governor issued Executive Order 20-69 authorizing local governments due to the COVID-19 state of emergency to hold public meetings using communications media technology and without the physical presence of a quorum until the expiration of the state of emergency. The state of emergency was declared in Executive Order 20-52 and declared locally by Leon County pursuant to Leon County Proclamation 2020-7 as may be amended or extended. In this light, I would ask for a motion from the City Commission to hold City Commission meetings and all other City of Tallahassee public meetings, including meetings of quasi-judicial boards and advisory committees using communications media technology, and notifying in advance of the public meeting the method to make public comment from the effective date of Executive Order 20-69 until its expiration. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to make that motion?
I move that motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Matlow seconds the motion. Is there any questions for the city attorney? She was the one that provided the language just to make sure that we're doing everything in accordance to the law. Seeing none, let me call for a voice vote. And if there is any dissension, then we will call for a roll call vote to make sure that the record is clear. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Well, I appreciate y'all letting me take that opportunity to get that on the record. Let's move into the meeting itself. First of all, look, folks, this is going to be a little different, a little unique, but we're going to make it, and we're going to have fun today. We'll, you know, it's different, and we'll just do the best that we possibly can. I would like to ask the Mayor Pro Tem if she would open us an invocation in prayer.
I would absolutely be honored to do so. Let us bow our heads for a short prayer. Father God, we thank you for this day, a day that we've never seen before. We thank you, Lord, for the many, many blessings that you are bestowing upon us as we gather together to do the good of our community and for the world. We ask, Lord, that you bless everyone who is on the call, everyone who is tuning in. And we ask, Lord, that you will just reign, rule, and abide and make sure that we're civil and we're good to one another, and we do our very best to honor you in all that we do. We ask that you will look upon those individuals who've suffered loss during this period of time. And Lord, help us to do our best to limit any more lives being lost. We ask this prayer in your name. Amen.
Amen. I think during this global pandemic, it's appropriate, even though it might seem a little awkward, that we do reaffirm our faith, both in the flag with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you feel like standing, please do. If you do not have a flag in front of you, please place the image in your mind and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Folks, I'm glad to see everybody on the call. A couple of housekeeping notes before we jump right into the meeting. First of all, yesterday I made a statement about votes, and I've been thinking about it all night. If you are comfortable taking votes, much like we just did, the voice votes that we usually do, and if it is a unanimous 5-0 vote, then we can let the record reflect that. If there is any dissension, which is obviously perfectly okay, then I will go back and I will call for a roll call vote just to make sure that the record is absolutely clear on each one of our positions, on each one of our votes. And if everyone is comfortable with that, that's how I'd like to run the meeting today. If you want to speak, obviously we will take as much time on every issue. Everybody will have an opportunity to weigh in. Electronically, we do have the opportunity to quote unquote raise your hand. I know that Harold went through that with us yesterday. Or, hey, look, by the way, that's Lulu Daly. You might be hearing from her every now and then during the meeting as well. My dog, I do apologize. Or look, just jump in and get my attention. This is new for all of us. We're going to make sure everybody has the opportunity to speak. We have provided ample opportunity for public comment in advance, and I want to give Jim Cook and his team a shout out for creating a system that allows, under the executive order, for us to receive public comment. As we go through the meeting on each agenda item, I will still ask Mr. Cook how many public comments we did receive. We have all received them. They will be part of the record. We have all had a chance to review them. Anybody from the public that is listening in now or watching or in the future, I know that Mr. Cook's team in the Treasurer Clerk's office has made it appropriate to have every single piece of communication part of the record and part of the meeting minutes. So there will be absolute clarity on the public record. And again, Jim, I want to thank you and your team for going above and beyond for making this happen during these extraordinary times. As it was mentioned earlier, last piece, if we do happen to finish both the City Commission meeting and the CRA meeting before the scheduled public hearing at 5 o'clock, as Allison mentioned, all of the microphones will be muted. A slide will be placed up for anybody in the general public that is watching to know that we have adjourned until we come back for the 5 o'clock public hearing. Please leave your computers logged in and just step away, and then we will come back at 5 o'clock. So any questions or comments on those couple of pieces of housekeeping before we move forward on how we're going to conduct votes? Any technical questions on how to raise the hand or attention? No big deal. How we have been collecting public comment and how we'll move forward, making sure that every piece of public comment is part of the record, or any questions on what we should do after we adjourn the CRA meeting before we come back, if there's a break before the 5 o'clock public hearing. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, this is Jim Cook. I thought this might be the right time to add one more comment or two on the public input. Wanted to just point out that we did receive nearly 50 comments by 10 o'clock last night, and that obviously you will address each of those item by item, but wanted to let the public know that those items were collated and distributed to the commission today. They also have been posted on board docs as item 7.01, which is where we normally have our public input at the beginning of a meeting. So those who are listening in should be able to see the same information that you as commissioners are looking at as the meeting proceeds.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. And before we start, I do know that Passover begins this evening. This Sunday is Easter Sunday. Ramadan begins in 2 weeks. These are the high holy days for many of us in our community. And I do hope that everybody is safe and happy and is able to celebrate and worship with their families. Moving on, Mr. City Manager.
At home.
At home, of course. Good point. Mr. City Manager, do we have any agenda modifications?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, we do. Item 9.02 from your consent agenda has been pulled at the request of Commissioner Bryant and been placed in section 10 of your agenda. Also, attachments were added as Treasurer Clerk Cook indicated to item 701. Those were the public comments, as well as a full update on item 1301, which is the COVID-19 update. In addition, we've added 2 new agenda items since the original publishing of this material. Item 1306, which seeks funding for the purchase of non-medical face masks. and item 1307, which seeks authorization to use funds for the care for our homeless. Those are the agenda modifications, sir.
Excellent. Commissioners, does anyone have a question for the city manager on the agenda modifications? Let's move forward. Are there no presentations today, Mr. City Manager?
No, sir. No presentations.
Do we have any additional announcements for the meeting today?
No, sir.
Okay. Usually at this point in the meeting, when we have a regular city commission meeting, this is the opportunity for citizen input on agenda items. We have collected citizen input on all of our agenda items, and we will be dealing with those each item as we come to them. Moving on, do we have any special appearances by other appointed boards, committees, or other governments, Mr. Manager?
No, sir, we do not.
We are on the consent agenda. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Move consent.
Second.
It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Commissioner Elaine Bryant. Any questions? All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? The consent agenda is passed 5-0. We are now on item 10.01, which was a part of the consent agenda. It was pulled by Commissioner Bryant. I'm going to ask for the city manager to give the intro, and then Commissioner Bryant, I will immediately ask for you to provide comments since you pulled it. So, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. This item involves the acceptance of the annual report from the CRA, or the Community Redevelopment Agency, for 2019. It is a standard process. Each year, the City Commission is to receive a report from the CRA itself. Rick McCraw is our expert from the CRA. He's joining us on this video conference, as well as our interim director of the CRA, Wayne Tedder. And we're certainly available to answer any questions you have.
Commissioner Bryant, well, first of all, Mr. Cook, did we have any public comment on 10.01 that was put into the record? Just
Mayor,
how many, if any?
Yes, Mayor, we did. We received 2 comments on this item. Both of them were distributed and posted.
Excellent. Commissioner Bryant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me first provide commendations to Wayne and his staff for the report. There are at least 2 or 3 items I would like follow-up. I think that in the report, it did ask that a requirement is that the audit be a part of the report. And it is not a part of the report, but it appears that it will come with the city's audit. But I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that the law required that it be a part of this report. So maybe at our next time the report comes next year, we can look forward to that being a part of the report. And then on page 40, 2 recommendations I'd like to put forth. One is regarding the Greater Frenchtown Southside District Business Facility Improvement Program. We have $50,000 that I think is available. And for the last 2-3 years, we have not in any way maximized the availability of funds, which says to me that we need probably a recommendation from staff as to what is the most effective way that we can actually get money into the hands of those persons who could take advantage of this program. Not sure why not, but I think that is something we probably need to look at, such that the money does not just sit, but that even if we need to change criteria, whatever it is, but I would ask that this program be reviewed and that Mr. Cook brings back some recommendation as to how we can be more effective in the distribution of these funds. I'll stop here in case there are questions or comments regarding that.
Well, let me go ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Bryant. Let me recognize Wayne Tedder for comment first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Bryant.
regarding the audit report, I did do a follow-up after our briefing 2 days ago. The audit was on track to be included in this report. However, when things became apparent with the COVID-19 issues, several meetings were canceled. So the audit committee in which they were going to review and approve was canceled. We've been extended until April 30th, the end of April, and it will be completed by the end of April. The second part to this is another issue that even Commissioner Williams-Cox and I have had conversations in the past about this grant facade improvement program and what is the approach that we need to make sure that this is a very effective program. About 6 months ago, we went out to the community. We went door to door. We went to churches. We did a number of hand-to-hand combat, for lack of a better term, trying to make sure that the community was aware of this program. As a result, I think we've had a lot of inquiries, but what we've found is there's been some issues from not having contractors available to do this work. The amount of funding of the grant might be a little bit too low. There's concerns about having improvements like basic repairs, like a roof repair. It's not covered under the existing program. Staff is in the process of developing some recommendations, and we would be happy to bring those back to the full board for some modifications.
Great, great. Commissioner Bryant, wonderful suggestion. Commissioner Bryant?
I think Commissioner Williams-Cox was getting ready to speak.
Sure, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to thank Wayne as well, because he's correct. We have had some great conversations about potential, what we could do. And I do believe that the amount is low in the considering what it takes to do some of the things that some of the businesses want to do, such as dealing with the roof or landscaping or what have you. And I do believe that it would help us if we were able to look at some more realistic type of criteria for, such as if a business needed a roof, needed our assistance with the roof, then well, why would we not do that? So I'm hoping that with the recommendations that come back from staff, I'm looking to see how we can think out of the box and be a little bit more creative and supportive to these businesses in this district.
Excellent. Commissioner Richardson, Commissioner Matlow, any comment?
I'm good, Mayor.
Wonderful.
I look forward to the staff's recommendations when they come back. This has been an issue for quite some time now. And so I think under Wayne's leadership, now is the time to get this done.
I agree. I agree. Commissioner Matlow?
I concur with all the points made.
Excellent. So Commissioner Bryant, would you like to make a motion?
Yes. Do you want me to do my other item first or just go one at a time? I'll move that we have brought back to us recommendations regarding the facility improvement program as it relates to the Frenchtown Southside District.
Second.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Bryant, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comment on the motion on the table? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record reflect that the motion passed 5-0. Commissioner Bryant, you are recognized.
Thank you, sir. The last thing is that there are several recommendations, or I should say evaluations, where the measure was not met. And in particular, I think in the Frenchtown Southside District. And as I spoke with Mr. Tedder, I think it would be a good idea if we could actually prepare a document that says this is the goal, these are the objectives associated with that, and have performance measures that we can actually measure. I think what we have now does not provide that. So I would like for us between now and the end of the year, maybe, to actually just those where it was not met, not those where it was, because I think he's going to do a total rewrite by this time next year. So between now and then, if we could actually have a document and approach that describes those three things.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Bryant. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, I heard Commissioner, was that
Richardson.
Commissioner Richardson?
Mhm.
Commissioner Richardson seconds the motion. Is there any comment? Hearing no comment, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Let the record reflect a 5-0 vote in favor of the motion. Commissioner Bryant, you're recognized.
That would be it. Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, did we also include in your motion the staff recommendation to accept the City of Tallahassee Redevelopment Agency's fiscal year 2019 report?
We did not, but so moved.
So is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second.
Second. Let me just put in, Wayne, I am assuming that the motion that this body made at the beginning of the meeting, which now allows for our committees to be able to meet virtually, will allow the audit committee the flexibility under law now to be able to meet even virtually, to be able to review and formally approve the audit that Commissioner Bryant so eloquently pointed out was not part of this. And so therefore, we do have the opportunity to move forward to accept this, knowing that the audit will be coming back in a formal manner.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Any other comment on the motion on the table? All those in favor of staff recommendation signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Seeing none, it passes 5-0. Commissioner Bryant, thank you very much. Do we have any other items that were pulled from consent, Mr. Manager?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
Sure. Mayor Tim.
Based on what you were just saying about the audit committee, I want to make sure that the statement that we agreed to, that we approved up front, will apply to any committee to be able to meet telephonically or virtually. Want to make sure that they understand that covers them as well.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You are absolutely correct, and that's a great point. We have passed by motion the ability under the governor's executive order for any of our committees to be able to meet virtually, as long as they publicly notice not only the meeting, but by way of how the public can communicate on the record officially in regards to those items that are on their agenda. So great point. Okay, moving on, Mr. City Manager, we are on 11.01.
Mr. Mayor, the treasurer clerk will introduce this item.
Excellent. Mr. Cook, thank you.
Jim, your microphone is muted.
Yes, it was. Thank you. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, this item is approval and ratification of appointments to the Tallahassee-Leon County Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. There are two appointments in front of you. One is the appointment of Judy Mandrell, selected by Commissioner Curtis Richardson. The other is the appointment of Marie Radigan, selected by Commissioner Jeremy Matlow. That's the item before you.
Mr. Cook, did we have any public comment on this item?
Mayor, we had one comment on this item. It was from Darby Kerrigan-Scott, who is the chair of the committee, who was affirming the appointments and welcoming the new members and looking forward to serving with them. That was the only comment on this item.
Wonderful. Commissioner Richardson, Commissioner Matlow, job well done. Both of them are outstanding individuals. Commissioner Matlow, I will turn to you for a motion to be seconded by Commissioner Richardson, and then we can go for a comment from there.
I'll move acceptance.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Matlow, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comment on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. We are now into a large section on our agenda for the introduction of ordinance. And remember that the introduction of ordinance does not require any action on our part. After the city attorney reads the introduction of each ordinance, I will simply ask if we have questions on that. And if there are no questions, then we will duly note that it was placed in the record. So, Madam Attorney, if you will walk us through, starting with 12.01, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 12.01 is introduction of ordinance number 20-0-06, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee adopting small-scale amendments to the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan, providing for severability and conflicts and providing an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for April 22nd, 2020. Please let the record reflect that the ordinance was introduced.
Colleagues, any questions on 12.01? All right, I got a comment. Cassandra, I noticed that you have framed that picture just perfectly behind your head. Everybody that's watching, see this beautiful landscape picture behind you, while the rest of us, you're looking at our blinds and everything. Good job.
You're a great role.
Thank you for noticing.
Job well done. Let it be noted that it was read into the record. 12.02, please.
Item number 12.02, introduction of ordinance number 20-0-11, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee adopting small-scale amendments to the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan, providing for severability and conflicts and providing an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for April 22nd, 2020. Let the record reflect that the ordinance was introduced.
Colleagues, any questions on 12.02? Seeing none. 12.03, Madam Attorney.
Item number 12.03, introduction of ordinance number 20-0-18, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Section 6 of the Charter of the City of Tallahassee to annex within the corporate area of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, upon adoption of said ordinance, property being situated in Leon County, Florida, in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Section 171.044 Florida statutes, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for May 13th, 2020. Let the record reflect that the ordinance was introduced.
Any questions, colleagues? Seeing none. 12.04, Madam Attorney.
Item number 12.04, introduction of ordinance number 20-Z-04, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee amending the Canopy Plan Unit Development on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for May 13th, 2020. Let the record reflect that the ordinance was introduced.
Any questions, colleagues? Seeing none. 12.05, please, Madam Attorney.
Item number 12.05 is introduction of ordinance number 20-Z-08, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, changing the zoning classification of land from commercial parkway and office residential to pristine plan unit development, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for April 22nd, 2020. Let the record reflect that the ordinance was introduced.
Any comments, colleagues? 12.06, please, Madam Attorney.
Item number 12.06, introduction of ordinance number 20-Z-10, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee amending the Evening Rose Plan Unit Development on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for June 17th, 2020. Let the record reflect that the ordinance was introduced.
Any questions, colleagues? Seeing none. 12.07, please.
Item number 12.07, introduction of ordinance number 20-Z-12, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating and including additional territory as in OR3 office residential and C2 general commercial on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee adopted and established by the City Commission, providing for conflict and severability and providing an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for April 22nd, 2020. Let the record reflect that the ordinance was introduced.
Any questions, colleagues? Seeing none. 12.08, please, Madam Attorney.
Item number 12.08 is introduction of ordinance number 20-Z-13, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating and including additional territory as an in University Transition UT on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, adopted and established by the City Commission, providing for conflict and severability and providing an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for April 22nd, 2020. Let the record reflect that the ordinance was introduced.
Any questions, colleagues? Seeing none, 12.09, please.
Item number 12.09 is the introduction of ordinance number 20-Z-17, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating and including additional territory as an in general commercial C2 on the official zoning map, providing for conflicts and severability and providing an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for June 17th, 2020. Let the record reflect that the ordinance was introduced.
Any questions, colleagues? Madam Attorney, do we have any other introductions of ordinance that come before us today?
No, ma'am.
You were, your sound was muffled, I'm sorry.
No, Mayor, that was the end of the introductions.
Great, thank you very much. Colleagues, we are now on policy formation and direction. We'll go back to the city manager. We are on item number 13.01, which is the COVID-19 update. I do know that we have, I believe, Mr. Marco Bryant, the president and CEO of Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, that is on with us as well. Mr. City Manager, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would also like to recognize Mr. O'Brien, who leads our regional hospital, Tallahassee Memorial. He has joined us, and in a moment, I'd like to turn it over to him for some brief comments. That'll be followed by a number of leaders of our departments throughout our city. It's a pretty long list. Clearly, we understand that this pandemic has impacted us in every way, and I wanted to make sure you received a full update today on the city, its approach, the perspective of our medical community, and where we're headed. And so let me provide a quick overview before we get to that. In much of this material, in fact, more detail than we will share today is in your agenda packet. It's online, it's available, connected to the agenda material for the public to see. Over the last 4 months, the coronavirus, now that we know as COVID-19, has impacted our world. And in February, it was recognized as a threat to the United States and the communities in the United States. And you will recall in February, we began taking actions as a city organization to address that. First and foremost, following CDC guidelines about being healthy, washing our hands, staying home if we're sick, very basic, clear communication. We rapidly moved into a different state as the virus spread around the United States, and it was apparent it would impact, in fact, every community in the United States. So there were more drastic measures that were necessary. Before we hit the middle of March, we took those actions. Mr. Mayor, you called a press conference that was joined by leaders from throughout our community. All of you and your colleagues stood at that press conference calling for diligence and vigilance from our community. We immediately began, from an employer standpoint, putting in place telework. You will not get an update from our IT group today, but I would like to thank them immensely. They have been very good at what they do. They've been very flexible, and I think it's already paid dividends in our organization as we were able to quickly move to more than 1,000 people teleworking and working from home, just as we're doing today. Other activities or changes included our Parks and Recreation Department. Ashley Edwards is on the phone. She'll give you a brief update. I think the impact to our operations first hit there. We are a very active community with residents wishing to play at our parks. We've learned that even more today over the last month than maybe we even knew. And so, but we had to roll back those activities because they were a source of gathering. And we did that. And we did that very incrementally in terms of we found things that were pressure points creating gatherings, and Ashley and her team have done a great job adjusting. And I won't go deeper in some of these, but I wanted to highlight some real pressure points. And we know some of the events that we all cherish that take place in late March and in April had to be canceled. Springtime Tallahassee is an example of that, but Word South, Shakespeare Festival, I could go on. they were canceled as we led the community. Glad to have Mr. O'Brien on the phone with us today because about a week before we even had a positive test case in our community, with discussions of TMH leadership, we began earnestly working on a drive-through testing facility that could test, in fact, hundreds, if not thousands of individuals as needed. Many of the people on this video chat were instrumental in making that happen, and it worked great. It was stood up. It served our community well. It's serving about 100 individuals every day to make sure that we have that ability to test our community. I could go on and on. I would like to highlight the effort that you played, commissioners, in your role as a intergovernmental agency member and appropriating $1 million to help our small businesses just bridge the gap to ultimately what we desire to be federal relief, and you'll get more information about that as well. That has worked extremely well. We know we provide utilities to much of our area, not just electric, but also water and sewer and solid waste and natural gas utilities. We immediately moved to suspend and take the pressure off of customers, any threat of disconnection for non-payment, and then even implemented a utility relief program that was first of its kind and now being discussed by others. You'll hear about that later as too. So we were very busy making modifications to what our business processes have been. Clearly, this is a different setting for us as we have a meeting virtually. Probably not the most comfortable thing for most of us. I think we'd all rather be there together, and sitting in the chambers, we'd be much more comfortable, but we have adapted. And so, again, I wanted you to hear from our experts. We have a long list. They're going to be very brief because I understand that we don't want to go too deep, but the breadth of operation and the service to our community is broad. And I wanted you to hear about it directly from them and certainly answer your questions. Let me highlight a few significant moments in time, I believe. Just in chronology. So I mentioned the testing site. That began on March 11th. Those discussions began somewhere around March 11th, well ahead of a first positive case, but anticipating the need to be ready. And then very next day on March 12th, when the city started canceling activities, rolling back our services, as I mentioned, we know collectively our education community was also acting responsibly, led by our universities, where they suspended on-campus learning as they headed into spring break, and the students didn't necessarily return to Tallahassee, and they were well informed. City and state and county offices, which is so important to our community, were closed to the public, though, because we understood that was necessary. That was on March 22nd and March 23rd. And then on March 25th, the county, with full support of the city, issued a county-wide stay-at-home proclamation. And then about a week later, our governor issued a statewide stay-at-home. I share those because it's been a whirlwind of a month as we catch up in this very first city commission meeting since taking these actions. And so today, I know we have nearing somewhere around 70 positive cases in our community, and we're working vigilantly to where we don't add many more. But we know that a surge is one event away. We certainly know that. Even though we have fared better than some, we must be vigilant today. And I think the word has to be underscored, and must. So we have an order in our community to only conduct essential business, whether that's us providing the business or that's us as users of essential businesses to do that. If we are not doing that, we must stay home. We are all modeling that behavior today on this video chat, and we must continue to repeat it. I know everybody's voice has been lent to that. I cannot say that loud enough. So I think with that, it's appropriate at this time to ask Mr. O'Brien to provide his perspective of our medical community. And then we're going to go down the list after he's finished and give you updates of most of our departments that are on the front line serving us today. Mark, are you on the line?
I am. Thanks, Reese.
Yes, sir.
First of all, can we go ahead and start?
Yes, sir, please.
First of all, let me thank everyone at the city for being incredible partners in this crusade, because it is a crusade on how we are dealing with this virus. Just to give you just a quick footnote, there have been in excess of 1,000 individuals who have been tested at the drive-through center out at Northwood Mall. That is important because it's not just the 1,000 people who are tested. It's recognizing that those 1,000+ people would have otherwise been in waiting rooms, in ERs, in doctor's offices and urgent cares. And when you present with other people, this is such a contagious virus that would have put significantly more than 1,000 other people at risk. So that's why this is important. Let me just give you a quick update where we are. We share information with a variety of folks. We had a meeting last week with some of the community leaders and certainly the mayor and Mr. Goad were a part of that process, along with several other key leaders in the community. And one of the things that we shared was where we stand today. And we track this on an ongoing basis. What is our infection rate in this community, and how can we protect our community? The good news is that fragile as it may be, we have a significantly lower number of cases for our population than other like communities. We're one of the lowest, probably in the Southeast, certainly in Florida. Right now, we're a little above 20 cases per 100,000. The state of Florida is 60, approaching 70 per 100,000. There are communities well in the hundreds. And what we recognize is that the more we can manage our community, manage our population, the better off we are. The unfortunate truth is that we have a living model of what can happen if we don't control it just up the road, and that's in Albany, Georgia. And I think everybody has read more than they want in Albany. That is a community that's suffering, that will likely be scarred forever from this COVID experience. You're talking about already around 1,000 people who've been identified as COVID positive. They are approaching 60 deaths in that community from COVID so far, and I'm sure that number will continue to rise. So as we have looked here at Tallahassee, the good news is that we have maybe a little bit of luck in keeping those numbers low to date. But I think it also reflects upon the medical leadership of our clinical community. Here at TMH, we have Dr. Dean Watson and Ryan Smith, who were early on looking at isolation policies and approaches that would mitigate those with symptoms away from the rest. Certainly the drive-through program at Northwood Mall is a big part of that. We have 2 other drive-throughs, one in the parking lot at Bixler and one at the Northeast. So again, we're keeping people out of the waiting rooms. Dr. Watson was pretty quick in getting the medical community to come together. And that's one of the good things about being in a community like Tallahassee, where the physicians have rallied together and have been complying and working off of a single set of guidelines on how to identify patients early, how to keep them out of harm's way, and put them in the right testing vehicle. That was very quick, and that is one of the big things that have kept our numbers low. Ryan and his team have been working with outlying community hospitals. We're talking about in 50, 60, 70, 80-mile radius of us, teaching them on how to manage COVID, managing those patients within their communities so we don't have to transport patients who don't need to be transported. Of course, if they do, if there's a higher level of care, that's what we're here for. But if they can be managed in a community setting, that's the best place, because the less you have to transport these patients, expose them to others, the better off we are. We've put, I think, 25 or more, at least 25 telemedicine units across the region, again, allowing us to put expertise in the hands and the arms and the eyes and the ears of providers in our region without having to move patients around. All of that has had a significant play. But at the end of the day, we recognize that as good as we might be performing, we are one fragile event away from bursting this bubble. And as a result, we have Dr. Freil, Dr. Campo, I think some of y'all know them, who have been leading other people in our medical community on basically preparing for this event. Not doctor, but he might as well be a doctor in some cases. Bill Gadice has been responsible for looking at our campus and our facilities, preparing us not just from a supply side. We've been searching vendors, expanding our supply chain reach, and so far we are in good shape. We have a healthy stock of supplies, but always searching in a limited market on how to increase that. But also, Bill and his team have been working on how to expand bed capacity here. We have a number of different strategies. It's a layered strategy that allows us to put people in the best environment and the most protected environment for our staff. We have been very focused on making sure we protect our colleagues here because they are the front line, and if they get in harm's way and become infected or become exposed, that limits our ability to provide care. So we've been focused on a strong protocol of what we call negative pressure environments. We have a lot of negative pressure capacity here, but even so, we've been expanding that. Just this past week, we've looked at different ways and have already implemented in a couple of locations how to create even more negative pressure environments by ventilating through HEPA filter arrangements, different wings of our hospital. So if we do have a major outbreak, we have ways in which we can manage a large number of patients. And we've been expanding the number of ventilators and other high-level or high-tech equipment that we would need to manage these patients moving forward. So just want to let you know, we recognize the need to prepare and put ourselves in a condition to be able to address that. There's a lot of models out there. All the models out there basically take us at least for Tallahassee through a peak period that's probably early May. Some of them push it out to June. In all cases, we are better off, much better off in meeting the demands of our community if we're able to stretch this out. Hopefully we'll have some factors of heat and humidity that help dampen it. But what we do recognize is that in order for us to do our job and do it well, we have to maintain manageable numbers of patients moving forward. Now, right now, we are in a high capacity environment. We can take care of a lot of patients. We have a lot of capacity available because we've been moving patients out who may not need to be here. We're not doing any elective surgeries, keeping our PPE stock high. But the best way we can protect our ability to provide care, and quite frankly, the best way we can provide the best outcome from our community is preventing the spread of this virus. And that's where it comes down to us as a community. And when I say a community, it really is a region. Certainly Leon County, but even beyond, because we as a regional safety network, kind of a super regional quaternary care facility, you take a circle 100 miles around, that's us. We have got to make sure that our communities, our populations are adhering to the guidelines. I heard Commissioner Williams-Cox mention stay at home, pray at home. That's something that we strongly encourage. I saw Reverend Holmes' message that he sent out, which was as strong as I've seen from anybody about the importance of worship, but let's worship at home. Certainly this is a time we all want to worship our Savior, but we need to do it in a smart way, the way the Lord would expect us to do it. You know, he expects us to do our part, to be smart, and we can do that. But we've got to create an environment where we protect our populations by making sure we don't have large gatherings, whether they're informal family, friend gatherings. We have to keep people separate. Certainly church services are an area that if gatherings come together in a certain way, that creates a high risk. We've talked about the homeless population, especially the symptomatic homeless. We need to make sure we create an arrangement that allows us to protect that population, but also protect them from spreading infection to others. So there are a lot of moving parts to this. It's a moving target. Every day is different. We're learning every day, but we need to recognize that you know, there's the medical community piece, and we are actively engaged in that. Unfortunately, I think staying a step or two ahead of it, at least to date, because of some really good people, good communication. Stephanie Durst-Polsky and her team have done a really good job of getting the message out. But at the same time, what we realize is that it doesn't take much as far as irresponsible behavior for our good numbers to turn into bad numbers. And this isn't just a numbers game, it's a lives game. This is one of these areas where, this is Grandpa Joe, this is Aunt Martha, and this is Cousin Tim. They're all vulnerable, and they all of us have some risk, but certainly all of us need to realize that this is not just conjecture. It's real stuff. It's dangerous stuff.
Thank you. But it's probably appropriate, because I want to be sensitive to Mark's time. Any questions from the mayor or commissioners for our TMH representative?
Well, I just want to jump in and say, Mark, I appreciate everything you and the entire medical community is doing. You've been a great partner to work with. We've got a lot of work to do. I agree wholeheartedly that one of the best things we can do as a community is stay on the same page. Social distancing, stay home, wear the mask. That's going to be our greatest ally in this fight. But I really appreciate, Mark, you and your team and the entire medical community for what you're doing.
Okay, let me make a couple more comments because I need to emphasize this. One is I appreciate your forward thinking. The city is, you guys are not playing a reactionary role as much as you're looking for opportunities to help. I know y'all are looking at some things right now that will have, I think, a positive impact on how we as a community protect ourselves. But I'll just go back, and y'all heard me say this. You could not have been better partners when it came to the Northwood Center drive-through station. That has been identified by the state as a best practice. They've used that model in other communities, and I'm talking about not little communities, but big communities. In Broward, that's the model that they used, and that came together because partners here and partners on your side coming together and putting that together. That could not have been a better design, better functioning, and better delivered product had you dreamed it up. I mean, the city, you guys were just incredible partners in that. Could not have asked for anything more.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions for Mark?
I got a question.
Commissioner Matlow.
Hey, Mr. O'Brien. First off, thanks for joining us today, and thank you for all the hard work the staff is doing over there at TMH. We know we're doing our best to keep people home and try to stop the spread. My question was on some of the numbers you sent out with kind of the trajectory of what we could be looking at in May and June. I think, rightfully caused a lot of concern for a lot of people, and hopefully encourage them to stay home. But what are we looking at as far as a community, a contingency plan if we hit those numbers to be able to meet the need of the community?
Well, you have to realize the demand is across all facilities in this region, so certainly would expand out. We have the ability here to basically engage and put people in different environments. We have some facilities, for example, that we vacated when we moved to the Mushton. We've already talked to ACA about getting waivers to reopen those. We certainly have looked at in-home patient management strategies and have already started having at least initial conversations with the fire department, the city that would connect with the fire department and Leon County EMS on how we could manage patients in-home that normally would be in a hospital through observation and remote monitoring technologies. What you do is you identify every location and everything possible to provide care. And I will tell you, we hope we don't ever have to get there, but if that happens, we can develop that. There have been several organizations that have volunteered facilities. Jim Murdoch, for example, has volunteered the Gazzavini Center, and we could do some cohorting of patients in that environment. There are plans, and there are layers of plans along the way. We have basically COVID centers within our organization in 5 different locations. This is just here at TMH that we could continue to expand before we even got up to the units with negative pressure environments. But we could, you know, it's one of those things that you don't want to have that. You know, what we're talking about is, you know, a Albany type of event. We're trying to prevent that. Let me say at the same time, the model that we are sharing is the CHIME model, and that's from the University of Pennsylvania. It's a well-recognized academic model, but it does not include a lot of variables that we don't know yet because there's not enough scientific support yet. We haven't experienced, for example, weather and humidity. There's a strong belief that's going to have a big positive impact on dampening, not eliminating, but dampening this. But that in those CHIME models, those things aren't factored in there. So what we're anticipating is the more we can stretch this out into the warmer, more humid months, the better off we're going to be. That's why it's important for us to not let our guard down now, but to push this off.
Commissioner Matlow?
Great. Yeah, no, thank you for that. And thank you for your work. And, you know, as you already know, the city is here as a willing partner to do everything we can to limit what we can. So thank you.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, sir. This question is probably for both you and Mark. Mayor, my question for you is, what role has Capital Regional played in this as one of our other major hospitals in the area? What role have they played?
So Capital Regional has been a fantastic partner. Mark will also reemphasize that they played a tremendous role supporting the healthcare community as well at the drive-through facility. I talk to Alan, the CEO over there, every day. I know that Mark talks to Alan and the teams talk together. So I feel very comfortably saying that both Bond, Neighborhood, the Health Department, TMH, CMRC, and the rest of the healthcare community right here is on the same page. And I've never seen the coordinated effort that we've seen through this event. But yes, CMRC is right there with us.
All right. And that includes the physician offices as well, physician practices.
Mm-hmm.
Have they all been a part of the coordination?
Mark, I'm gonna let you.
Yes, Dr. Watson's been very engaged. Dr. Fralla, they've been very engaged in coordinating across the entire medical community.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that, because in other cities, New York and some of the others, I haven't heard that there has been coordination among the hospitals. It's almost like they've been working in isolation of each other. And so I'm glad to hear that we got the entire medical community working together to address this issue and getting out ahead of it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Bryant? Questions, comments?
No questions, but I too want to add my thanks to Mark and to really all persons in the healthcare arena for the work that's been done so far. And also to Reese for his forward thinking as promoting the city as a partner in this process. And I think long term, we will see the benefit of all of us working together in a collaborative way. So thanks to both of them.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I too want to just pile on and say kudos to everybody that is involved. You know, those of you who don't know, I'm a news junkie, so I keep up with what's going on nationally. I'm very proud of the efforts that we're putting in to take care of home, and I look forward to us continuing to do that. I would ask Mark, or I know that the orthopedic clinics, their specialty is a little bit different, but they do perform surgeries in some of those facilities, and I will hope that if need be, their facility will also be included in the medical response in case it's needed.
Yes, they are. In fact, all the ambulatory surgery centers, Red Hills, et cetera, have made their facilities available if we ever need to get to that point.
Okay, thank you. Great job.
Mark, in closing, I know your time is valuable during this and you need to get off, but I want to thank you again. You've been incredible to work with. Your team's incredible. Thank you for keeping us updated. As you know, the city is being very proactive, and we actually have 2 agenda items on our agenda today, one dealing with the a large bulk purchase of face masks for the public, which is right in line with what we've been saying about trying to stop the spread. And also a new agenda item that was brought to us dealing with those that are experiencing homelessness that could be caught up in the COVID-19 pandemic as well, which I know has been a great concern for the medical community. So we're moving forward. We've got some great ideas, and we're here to help.
Well, we appreciate it. Both of those are great initiatives. So anything that we can do, let us know.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. City Manager, I know that we still have a lot to talk about on this item. I am going to ask you, team, to get straight to the point, be very succinct. I know you're going to walk us through at least 9 different departments, so let's go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will move fast, and if you don't mind, we'll go right through this and then take questions at the end. I'm going to start, and I'll call on the individuals for the updates. I'm going to start with our public safety area. I'll first call for Chief Revel to provide an update, followed by Chief Gaines. Chief Revel.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. Just to be very quick with this, we're focused and following up on our CDC compliance recommendations for all of our staff. Our telework is going very well. Our electronic reporting has proven very efficient. We have purchased and are providing PPE equipment to all of our officers so that when they have that necessary contact with the public, they can be as safe as possible. We are also masking anyone that has to be arrested during that transport. We are rotating our teams throughout the department that have to be there so that we don't deal with any cross-contamination. We are working closely with the Florida Police Chiefs Association as well as the Health Department and our local and state partners to make sure that we are consistent in our efforts and in our messaging. We are continuing to deal with some large crowd issues, and you have some documentation on that. I will say that trend has seemed to slow, and we are getting a good deal of cooperation in that, but we are taking a very strong stance on the fact that we cannot continue to tolerate these large groups gathering together. So we're taking steps to manage that and to make sure that we're ahead of that as we move forward. One of the issues that you all, I know, dealt with specifically was Polk and Meridian. We have contacted all of those owners of property in that area, have obtained trespass letters, and are down there just about hourly. I can say we checked it probably about an hour ago, and there was no one there other than the couple of people that are permitted to be there per the owner of those lots. So that has been something we've dealt with quickly and fairly efficiently. We are also seeking to still get some clarity on what we deem non-essential businesses. Those questions come in multiple times a day, every day, and we are taking a very literal stance on the governor's order and making sure that we get compliance as much as we can in the enforcement of those essential businesses. And then lastly, I just want to say very strongly, that we are of one message of staying home and making sure that people don't gather together. And we are going to be on the forefront of that. We are on the forefront of that. And although we're gaining compliance, we all know social spread is an issue. And so we've got to be in front of that and make sure that those gatherings aren't allowed to continue to occur.
Thank you, Chief Revel. Let's go to our Chief Gaines.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager. We are continuing operations with all our administrative staff working from home. We're encouraging our personnel to stay home unless reporting to work, use good hygiene, and follow CDC and Department of Health recommendations. In collaboration with Leon County EMS and our medical director, we have developed a COVID-19 emergency response procedure for our personnel, which requires them to provide a mask for every patient and wear an N95 mask and appropriate PPE on every medical call. We are now requiring all station visitors to wear a mask when visiting and requiring all our emergency responders to wear a mask in station or whenever they are out in public for a non-emergency event. To support this requirement long-term, we're making cloth masks for all our employees and their immediate family members. We're working, of course, with TMH by overseeing the operations and providing security for the personnel at the Northwood collection site. And I've directed my staff to develop a plan to support the medical community by utilizing our nearly 280 paramedics and EMTs to assist the hospitals if they become overwhelmed with COVID-19 patients. And then lastly, we're continuing to work with Leon County Emergency Management to ensure the necessary PPE for emergency responders is acquired and critical information is communicated out to the public, our public safety partners, and the community. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Good update. Let's move to our Parks and Recreation Director, Ashley Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We've taken steps to protect our staff. We've adjusted our business practices and have most of our employees working from home. Others are working in split crews with alternate shifts. We're also working really hard to remain engaged with all of our participants, and most especially our seniors who are very vulnerable. The effects of social isolation can be very difficult for them. We are communicating with them like one-on-one personal phone calls. We have emails that we're sending out, and obviously doing some virtual online things as well. We're providing resources, information. We're offering virtual and online classes. We have fitness tips and sports and lessons, games and activities, arts and crafts projects, and obviously this is for kids, adults, and seniors, but we are making sure especially those seniors stay connected. We are also actively monitoring our parks and trails. We are seeing some issues with people gathering in our parks and not practicing social distancing, especially in heavily used parks like Cascades. Just about an hour and a half ago, I had staff out there. The afternoon seemed to be quiet. There's less people walking, less people out there, and everyone seems to be doing all the right things and recreating responsibly. But in the evenings, we're seeing an uptick in the number of people that are out there. And we really need to make sure that as our staff continues to monitor these usage patterns, we need everyone to take personal responsibility, not get out of our sure that they're maintaining social distancing, especially while they're walking or using our trails or playing disc golf. Otherwise, we may need to start looking at limited hours of operation or even closing parks. But we do want people to remember that this is very critical, and our parks are really important to a lot of people, and we want everyone to be responsible so that we can all continue to enjoy them during this crisis.
Thank you, Ashley. We're going to move to our utility sector. Rob McGarry, our General Manager of Electric and Gas. Rob?
Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, we too have got our folks protected. We're rotating folks at home and work, and those that are at work that can't work from home, like our field crews, are set up at dispersed locations so that they're not having to interact with each other. We have implemented a couple practices in our gas utility to improve employee safety by keeping out of the homes with pilot light and gas leaks, and we're doing that working with the local plumbing community. And the good news is our system is running reliable, and we're meeting our customers' needs even with the skeleton staff that we've got in right now.
Great. Thank you, Rob. We're going to move to Renetta Marshall, our General Manager of Underground Utilities and Public Infrastructure, which includes our water and wastewater services. Renetta? You're on mute. There you go.
Hear me now? All right.
Good.
Yes, City Manager, Mayor and Commissioners, we continue to provide our essential services, which, as you know, include our water and wastewater utility, as well as stormwater utility, as well as maintaining and operating our public infrastructure. Water demand has not reduced. As a matter of fact, it's up, probably indicative of the low rainfall. There's no problem in meeting that demand. As no surprise, traffic volume has gone down. With our traffic monitoring, it's gone down in some areas as much as 60%. As far as our capital improvement program, we continue to maintain and implement that. That, of course, includes the road repaving, our system upgrades in the water system, the Weems Road project, FAMU Way Phase 3. Just as Rob was saying, a lot of our employees in UUPI are those frontline workers that cannot work from home. So therefore, we have implemented modified staffing plans in order to preserve our staff, disperse reporting, enhance standby, modified shifts, and rotating the staff.
Great. Thank you, Renetta. We're going to move to our solid waste service, our General Manager, Reginald Ofani.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager. We continue to provide services uninterrupted The garbage, both residential and commercial, is still being picked up. We have the bars and some restaurants and every other things they are generating, but not a lot of garbage. So what we've done is modify our staff to ensure that we provide them the services that they requested. We are continuing to provide safe working conditions for all of our staff members. And we also have the janitorial staff coming every night to sanitize the whole building and ensure that the building is safe. We are also not allowing any of the employees to congregate or stay in any one location. They are separated and doing the work that they need to do. They're all provided with masks and gloves. So we hope that all those things will help us continue to provide the services that we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Reginald. Let's move to Angela Baldwin, our Director of Star Metro.
Good afternoon. We've also implemented modified staffing levels. We've continued to operate our full service routes with limited exception to ensure that riders that need to access work and essential services can. With our top priority of keeping passengers and bus operators and personnel safe, we're working closely with the FDOT and with FTA regarding best practices. And based on the latest guidelines from the CDC, we distributed to our operators hand sanitizers, masks, gloves, and face shields to protect them and the general public as well. We've increased our disinfecting efforts on our buses and our facilities. We want to also bring attention to the plexiglass or the barriers that we're constructing by fleet management and our Star Metro team. These barriers will be installed in the bus operators' compartments, and we're one of the few transit operations building these from scratch, and we've shared our plans with the FDOT, or they're sharing with others in the industry. We've also limited our fixed route capacity to half the ridership to support social distancing, and it's also extended to our dollar ride services, as that reduced service there has allowed us to book individual trips whenever possible. To further encourage only transportation for essential needs, some of our specialized programs have either been suspended or scaled back with large communication efforts to really encourage that only essential travel is needed. FSU, the services have been suspended except for one campus circulator bus, and we've reallocated those operators to our full service. And all in all, Star Metro, we're honored to continue serving our community on the front lines, and we'll continue monitoring, adjusting, and communicating as necessary. Thank you.
Very good, Angela. Team's doing great. I appreciate that. Let's move to David Pollard from our airport director.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager. From the airport standpoint, and consistent with other airports nationwide, we're seeing a significant reduction in passenger traffic. When compared in terms of volume, travelers passing through the TSA security checkpoints nationwide, we're down approximately 95% in terms of passenger volume. Locally, we're down up over 80%. We'll continue to refine those numbers as we get those final reports and monthly reports from the air carriers. Moving on, we're also getting numerous requests for financial relief from airlines, from rental cars, and our tenants and concessionaires. We're looking at those and considering those and looking at a formal policy as we look at the impacts that we're seeing with the lost parking revenues, the lost rental car revenues, and the things that we're being impacted by. So we're assembling a policy. We'll be taking that forward to legal and city leadership for review prior to our response back to our tenants and carriers. We're also preparing several projects as we come up out of this and some of the relief, the CARES package and things of that nature. We're looking to come up out of this and provide jobs for our community. We're working on several projects right now. The runway project, the north-south runway, the taxiway, the parallel taxiway, passenger loading bridges that we can be replacing out here, air traffic control tower improvements, and other projects that will stimulate activity here locally and create jobs. So we're working with the FAA hard to bring in some additional grant opportunities. We'll be bringing those forward to the commission for your review and approval as we move forward. And lastly, we're supporting locally Leon County Emergency Management as they've stood up a logistics staging area out here at the airport, providing numerous medical supplies and relief supplies for our first responders and medical service providers. That's all I have, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, David. A good update. Let's go to Karen Jimenville, our Director of Growth Management.
Thank you, City Manager. In growth management, we're continuing to provide support to the construction and development process. We're providing all of our services, including plan review, inspections, and even our chat features for customers who have questions. All of our inspection teams are working remotely, including the entire land use and environmental division. We have a limited number of staff working in the office, and they're doing so on a rotation basis. Overall, our workforce has been really flexible in adapting to the changing work environment, and they've been working to find some innovative ways to continue to provide high-level service to our customers, including a new virtual inspection program that I will share more with in the next agenda item.
That's great. Thank you, Karen. Let's move to our Director of Community Housing and Sustainability, Abena Ojatayo.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. We have staff in housing, human services, and code enforcement and resilience are all working remotely, but very actively engaged. All services are still going on with the exception of interior inspections. We are very actively engaged with local, state, and even federal partners as we support the response effort and the mitigation efforts, particularly for our homeless population. And so, as you know, later on in your meeting, we'll provide some details about some strategies that have been developed in coordination with Leon County EOC. But all is well here, and we're rocking and rolling.
Thank you, Abena. Our Director of Resource Management, Robert Wiggin. Will you provide us an update, Robert?
Thank you, Reese. Mayor, Commissioners, resource management staff's working effectively remotely with departments. March financials officially closed today, and the city's monitoring closely to ensure that all departments have the resources they need to respond to the pandemic duties. We can assure you that they do have those resources. We'll also begin estimating revenue and expenditures for fiscal year 20 with these actual results that we have for the month of March, and forecast those to the end of the year. We're working to track costs related to COVID response. We're attending online federal and state training and ensuring we remain eligible for FEMA public assistance, as well as balancing that public assistance opportunity with any federal and state relief programs. You have an update in your agenda about the various federal responses, including the CARES Act. Lastly, and finally, we remain connected with the National League of Cities, the Florida League of Cities, our local partners to ensure that we're answering surveys. We're taking advantage of any webinar opportunities for training, and then sharing experiences so that we're all working towards the best outcome possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Ben Pingree, our leader of PLACE and OEV, can you give us an update on our business grant program, please?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, Mayor, Commissioners, as you recall, 2 weeks ago, I believe to this day, you acknowledged what we were seeing in the marketplace in terms of the challenges economically that so many of our businesses are experiencing. But more than that, you identified that really the strength of the federal government, the state government, and other of those larger grant and loan programs were en route. And so we crafted this Bridge to a Bridge, if you will, program, which is the CEDAR grant, COVID-19 Economic Disaster Relief Program. And I'm very happy on behalf, I know the city manager's been keeping you closely apprised, but just put it to you this way, within an hour of your action at that joint meeting with the county commission, we were online and receiving applications. And within 8 business days, and we would get daily briefings to you, we had expended the full $1 million. So a couple of interesting takeaways, I think, and you're going to get a full report on this, by the way, at your next special meeting a week from today. But we really saw a great blend. I want to tip hat to a lot of different folks. We had city and county staff people cross-train to review these applications. Why? Because we can do that and we can inject a little bit of money into our business community faster than they can apply and receive the larger funds from the SBA, emergency bridge loan programs, et cetera. So the numbers, we're at 489 accepted applications, just over $1 million in total award. We actually ran over a bit. That's fine. We've identified a place to pay that from, but a great blend. We had worked internally, for example, within OEV to make sure that every single certified MWSB firm was contacted in advance of the deadline, so they would have the opportunity to apply if they so desired. And we see that blend. Large number of businesses, 343, 10 or fewer employees, 90, 11 to 24, and then 56 of the larger, 25 to 50. And then if you look at the number of employees, we've got 4,000, just shy of 4,500 employees that are part of those businesses that are being served, and a great distribution between the really small businesses up to the larger businesses. Real quick, I know I'm on the clock here. In terms of industries, a great spread as well. 7 bars, 15 childcare facilities, 27 health. That includes dentists. And if you were speaking with the city manager earlier today, if you think about it, in a time of social distancing, you could understand how they would have a temporal reduction in use. 6 hotels, 69 restaurants, and 26 retail. Couple of things, and then I'm done. I want to thank also Jim Cook and his team. That's really the final step of being able to expedite these payments out. We're going to have, again, a full report, but I have to tell you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, as the city manager knows, you don't do it for the accolades, but some of what we've heard from these businesses, from large to small, is just incredible. And the final thing is, we were one of the first to do it. And we've been receiving phone calls from all over the state of Florida. It's nice to know that you're leaning in a way that makes Miami-Dade County and Palm Beach and Hillsborough sit up and want to know what you're doing, particularly when you're helping those folks in your own community. Happy to answer any questions. I know we'll touch on this another, shortly in a week's time. Oh, one final thing. All the different kind of resources are available to you in this handy dandy business resource guide that is updated daily, oevforbusiness.org. We are a great ombudsman to those state and federal programs as well. And thank you for the opportunity to present, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Ben. I'm going to move to James Barnes, our Chief Customer Officer. James is not one to be brief, but I'm going to ask him to be brief and give us the good details about our utility relief program, please.
Thanks, Reese. To the mayor and commissioners, based on your direction, we have been able to go ahead and process approximately 695 customer relief assistance program. About 95 of those are businesses. We are receiving a tremendous amount of appreciation for the programs. We're getting calls daily. We have deployed approximately 150 people now telecommuting from home to support all of the customers' initiatives. They're working from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. to process all of these assistance and anything else the community needs. That's pretty brief, Reese.
Hey, A+, James. Hey, Mayor and Commissioners, you have information about the federal programs in your agenda. We will not go over that. I think you have been well briefed for your reference and the public's reference, though it is attached to your report. So this concludes our update. I appreciate your indulgence of that. Clearly, this crisis impacts our entire organization, our entire community. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank many of our departments that you didn't hear from: our communications department, our fleet, accounting, procurement, human resources, facilities. We've got a number of behind the scenes areas that really make this go. So I wanted to give you a full report on where we stand, and that concludes our presentation.
Let's open it up for any questions for the city manager. We'll just give everybody the opportunity to ask, starting with the Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't have a question. I just have accolades. I want to thank Reese and Deputy City Manager, the Assistant City Managers, and all of the department heads for all that you're doing to continue to make us proud and continue to make us strong. You hit the ground running, and I'm hearing nothing but good things out there in the community. For those who reach out to me, I want to just say thank you to the men and women who are behind you doing the work and following your leadership. It is very evident that you're doing some great things, and we look forward to continuing to do these great things as we work our way out. So thank you all. Kudos to all of you. Thank you for spreading that million around. I was concerned that we might get more than that, but it sounds like you found a way to fund the gravy that rolled off, and that's excellent. We appreciate that. We do know that we're getting some questions about nonprofits, so we'll talk about that next week. But thank you all so very, very much for what you're doing. And again, to all of the men and women who are day in and day out, you've been doing this kind of stuff. You've just kicked it up for COVID-19, and we know that you'll be ready for whatever comes next. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just echo what our Mayor Pro Tem has said and commend the city manager for the leadership that he has provided through all of this, and the tremendous staff. This didn't just start. I think we've seen this during his tenure and the leadership team that he has put together and the quality work that they're doing. I don't think that anyone has missed any services or the quality of those services provided by our great city staff. And I just want to commend the city manager, his leadership team, and the almost 3,000 city employees that we have for the tremendous job that they have done and are doing for the residents of our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Bryant.
So as not to be really redundant, but let me just add on my thanks to city staff and to leadership. I would add, though, that the fact that we've been able to be innovative, think outside the box, and actually lead such that others are following us is a testament to the fact of who we are as a city. So again, commendations to all those, from the persons that are providing a visionary leadership role to those who are making it happen on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you. First off, I wanted to just thank TPD on the large gatherings that we've started to crack down on. We were hearing from a lot of concerned people that either heard parties in their neighborhoods or just saw things that made them uncomfortable. And I'm getting less calls and Facebook messages about this sorts of things. So it's very much appreciated. The second thing is on essential businesses. We've had some people either confused or not knowing exactly what the standard is of essential, depending on what products they may sell. And I think it would be nice if we had something centrally from Tallahassee, this is what we're allowing, this is how we're interpreting the governor's orders, and then having some sort of official notice that we give those businesses that they should close, that we're asking them to close, officially, but also pairing them with OEV at the same time. So they're not aware of the resources from the state and federal government. We have just one process of, hey, we need you to close. Here's some resources that can help you out.
Great point. Great point. I'm sorry, Commissioner Matlow.
That's all.
That was me, Mr. Mayor.
Reese, I want you to know that I think y'all are doing a fantastic job. Heck, I talk to you about 5 or 6 times a day, it seems like, and real proud of the team, starting with you all the way down. Every department's really pulled together. My only question for you is, as we head into next week's intergovernmental agency meeting, City Commission made a unanimous stand in favor of moving forward with some type of assistance for nonprofits and individuals or some type of a mix thereof. Are you working with your counterpart, Mr. Long over at the county and with Mr. Pingree to bring back something for consideration? If I understand correctly too, the majority of everybody, even though the motion I made did not pass, the majority of everybody on both the county and the city were at least interested in having a conversation a couple of weeks later. Do you know if there is going to be a specific agenda item addressing nonprofits in our community?
Mr. Mayor, let me take a stab at that, and if Ben wants to chime in, he can. I'm working obviously with our Director of Place, Ben Pingree, and I know they have been working on to make sure they can identify funding. One of your constraints is how do you fund that? Ben has worked with Ms. Dawson, the attorney at OEV, to try to find solutions to give you as a board, as the entire IA board, some flexibility. In that last meeting, you'll recall there was a motion by Commissioner Matlow to bring back information about the hospitality industry. I don't recall if that included nonprofits. I don't think it did, but I know there's some framing related to that. Beyond that, I'm not aware of any particular recommendations. Ben, you correct me if I've said something wrong, please.
Reese, included in that was supposed to be the services as well, which would include nonprofits.
That's right.
Good. I appreciate that clarification. I think we have our answer then, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Mayor, could I add one comment?
Sure.
Clearly, that you just got an operational update, but I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Cassandra and Jim and Dennis for their good hard work and support, and I know they're supporting you. Really good teamwork. Couldn't be more thankful of that. Every question seems to be a unique question, and I really appreciate their support for everything we do.
Yes, sir. Final thoughts as well before we move on, because this item doesn't actually require any action. I do want to also recognize the incredible efforts of the county under the EOC and the school district in everything that our teachers and county employees and everybody has been working very well together. And I appreciate that, Reese. Y'all have done a fantastic job along with the county and with the school district. So thank you. With that,
Mr. Mayor, this is Jim Cook. Before you leave the item, I wanted to be sure to mention that we do have 2 comments from the public on that item. Again, both of those were received and distributed to you and posted to the public, but I wanted to be sure that was mentioned during the meeting.
Great, thank you. No action is required, so let's move on to 13.02, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I think we can be brief on this one, but I wanted to make sure we highlight a program and an adaptation of service in our growth management area as we work to support our construction trades and our skilled trades. Karen Jumonville, our director, you heard from her earlier. Karen, will you give us an update on what you're doing? I especially want the public to know, because I don't want to discourage people from doing things they need to do, and how you support that.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and appointed officials for allowing me the opportunity to share a few of the details of our new virtual inspection program in growth management, which we're very excited about. With COVID-19, we were challenged to really come up with ways to take an inspection process that tends to be hands-on in nature, where our inspectors are out interacting in the field with contractors and homeowners, and keep these inspections moving forward, but in a manner that respects social distancing protocols. And our primary goal with this was to come up with a process that protects the health and safety of all of the parties while keeping development and construction moving forward. So the program our team developed is a virtual program that's focused on the inspections that we felt were the biggest challenge to customers and staff from the social distancing and health perspective. And these are inspections that take place in occupied residential homes. Like I said, they often involve a contractor, staff, and a homeowner in a smaller, more confined space than you would otherwise encounter with other inspections that might be for a new building in a more open air environment. So we designed the program around 3 types of permits. First, mechanical permits, and those are for things like a change out of a heating and an air conditioning unit in a home. And also, secondly, gas permits, and third, window and door permits, all in these occupied residential homes. So the way that the inspection works is that the contractor would use either a smartphone or a tablet and they would virtually connect visually with our city inspector. And then the inspector would guide them through, direct them really how to move about the site, to highlight the areas of the site that the inspector needs to see to conduct that inspection. And then the results can be given immediately and immediately entered into our online permitting system to help move that permitting project forward. So there were a number of benefits that came from this process. We just started it on Monday. We've conducted 11 virtual inspections so far. But at first it achieves the primary goal, which was health and safety of our staff, the contractors, and homeowners. And additionally, it creates a lot of efficiency by limiting the travel time for inspectors traveling back and forth across town to individual home sites for these inspections, which saves gas, saves mileage, saves time, saves money, all of those great things. And it also creates some flexibility for the inspectors, because the inspection can be done anywhere, from their office, from their truck. So if they encounter a situation where one inspection takes a little longer than they expected, they're not calling the next person to say they'll be late. They can run out to the truck and they can conduct that inspection virtually, which works well for the homeowner and the customer as well. So we've gotten some positive feedback from the contractor so far on this process, and we're going to continue to refine the process and potentially expand it to other areas if it works well. And we hope that it becomes a permanent part of how we do business. So we're looking forward to getting some additional feedback from our customers on that, so that we can make any refinements that may be needed to make it the best success that it can be. So just in closing, while our offices are closed to the public, we're continuing to provide every service that we typically provide. As I mentioned, plan review, inspections, chat, records management. We've even started conducting our site plan meetings and our Board of Adjustment meetings virtually. So we're doing that through teleconference with full public participation included as part of that. And then we also started allowing electronic submittals of our environmental permits and residential permits to keep things moving. So COVID-19 has presented us with some challenges, but it's also really given us an opportunity to rethink the way we provide services and implement some innovative new approaches to helping our customers. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great job, Karen. Appreciate it. The recommended actions to accept the staff's report on virtual inspections. Mr. Cook, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not have speakers on this item or comment on this item.
Excellent, wonderful. Turning to my colleagues, is there a motion for acceptance?
Move acceptance.
Properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Any further comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record reflect a 5-0 vote. Mr. Manager, 13.03, please.
Thank you, sir. 1303 seeks your authorization to submit to the Federal Transit Administration for Section 5310 grant, to apply for that grant and to receive it if approved for approximately $190,000 to be used in our Dollar Ride program. Our Director of Star Metro, Angela Baldwin, is joining us in this meeting today if you have any questions.
Move acceptance.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Mr. Cook, do we have any public comment that's been entered into the record on this item?
No, sir.
Any further comments or questions from my colleagues? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Item number 13.04, please, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, sir. This is similar. This involves the seeking your approval to submit for grants related to the Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 and 5339 grants. Together, these grants could total approximately $3.9 million and be used for both operating and capital expenses, things such as buses and other related facilities. Again, Angela is with us if you have any questions.
Move that recommendation.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bryant.
Move staff recommendation.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Bryant, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Cook, do we have any public comment on this item that's been entered into the record?
No, sir.
Excellent. Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Let the record reflect a 5-0 vote in favor. Madam Attorney, item number 1305, please.
Second amendment to the amended and restated Urban Services Development Agreement. To provide you a brief summary, on January 30th, 2020, after extensive community input, the Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency approved an amendment to the Northeast Gateway Project. This item requests approval of an amendment to an existing agreement with the owners of property comprising approximately 4,677 acres within the incorporated limits of the City of Tallahassee, referred to as the Wilani Arch. Prior versions of the agreement provided for dedication of only a portion of the Northeast Gateway project and the I-10 interchange right-of-way. In exchange for reservation of land for future right-of-way for the Northeast Gateway Phase 1 project, the owners will receive concurrency or other forms of transportation credit. The owners are not obligated to dedicate land for any right-of-way prior to the adoption of an amendment to the comprehensive plan providing for a long-term land use plan for this property and bringing the property within the urban services area. Of course, the agreement does not prohibit any such donation outside of this agreement. Both Senior Assistant City Attorney Lou Norvell and Assistant City Manager Wayne Tedder, as well as myself, are present to address any questions you may have.
Certainly do appreciate it. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
Mayor, we had a single citizen provide comment on this. As with the other items, it was distributed to you and posted.
Excellent. Certainly do appreciate it. Let's open it up for discussion. I'll do a round robin on this one. We'll start with the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no questions with what has been proposed. The question that I had was was answered by the city manager, but I will state it here for the record. I asked, the question was, moving forward with this, will this make us, I guess, committed to any other obligation and future obligation as a result of this action? And it's my understanding that answer there is no. I want to respect the process that we've gone through working with the citizens on the Northeast Gateway process. Great progress has been made from where we started. I dare not put a toe in there to stop us from moving forward with the progress that has been made. I think the citizens have spoken loudly and clearly where they stand on this, and I'm in favor of moving forward with them.
I am too. Commissioner Matlow?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be in favor of waiting on this item till after the transmittal and adoption hearing. If we decide to include this whole area in the urban services area, it seems a bit premature to kind of commit to something that we're not sure is going to happen yet. And based on the conversations at the last meeting, it seemed like there was some hesitation on expanding the urban service area. I think it just really deserved more input and more time to really see what's going to happen before we commit. And my second point about it, I don't think for Mr. Tedder, completion of the Wilani extension, the Gateway project, Northeast Gateway project, that's not necessarily dependent on this agreement.
Wayne, are you still on? Reese, are you on?
Wayne may be on mute.
Wayne, you're on mute.
He's got it now.
Yeah, I'm on, Mayor and Commissioner. Sorry about that. I had a problem with it unmuting. Commissioner Matlow, in regards to your question regarding stopping the plan. So in for the Wilani Boulevard, the Northeast Gateway, Blueprint is moving forward with their project. And so for this year and next year, they are anticipating completing design of this project. In 2022, they will start construction. So if they do not have the right-of-way at this time, then it could absolutely stall the project in the process of the project. For instance, if they have to include additional dollars to fund this right-of-way, then they need to start including it in their budget this year to address those funding needs.
So the alternatives would be to purchase right away to complete that project?
That is correct.
Okay. And so part of this agreement gives essentially a credit for concurrency fees in the future. What are concurrency fees exactly?
So when a developer comes in and they propose a certain amount of development, we do an analysis. It's called a concurrency review analysis, and we do this for every project. And basically what we do is look at the impacts that the development has on the surrounding area. In this particular case, when they come in and do a concurrency analysis, they will not be exempt from doing that. And if there are mitigation dollars that are required for a project, then the donation of right-of-way would assist them in covering those costs for the concurrency mitigation. So instead of paying in a bank, a mitigation bank, then they can draw upon some of the credit that they have created with the donation of the right-of-way. This is something that we have done for a number of projects in the last 23 years that I've been a part of the city.
So essentially, we're buying the right-of-way. We're just using money from concurrency fees at a later date. Sorry, yeah, I was breaking up on my end too. So essentially, we are essentially purchasing the right of way. We're just using money from future concurrency fees to pay for it.
No, there's two different things. So the right of way is necessary for construction. It's completely separated from the project. And many times we've looked at land development. We call them development agreements, like you have, where in exchange of certain things, property is donated to the city. And we did that in the original agreement. And keep in mind that original agreement was in 1990, and that was about 27 years before the first development ever took place on this site. So regarding the timing, you can never be too soon when you know what you need to complete a project and you have that opportunity to obtain the right-of-way. This is the perfect time to try to do that. So when a developer comes in, the property owner may not even be a part of this development. So a developer will come in and propose a certain amount of development, and then they will be charged with certain mitigation fees. So this would be something that really extends to the future development of the site when it is developed in the future.
So, I mean, it would stand to reason to me that this property value is probably only likely to go up as we expand the urban service area. If we expand our urban service area, that would actually give more value to the surrounding property and make the right-of-way essentially more expensive. So my question would be, this agreement basically says that after the urban services area is expanded, then they'll donate the line and we'll give credit or essentially pay for it at that new rate. So it just seems to me like the smarter thing to do would be to try to acquire the right-of-way needed for the public's purpose before values start to go up in a certain area.
So I think if you look at how appraisals are typically done, they're the same regardless. I think what increases the value is if the property was actually developed in the future, and then you came back and tried to obtain the additional right-of-way, that is when the value will substantially increase.
Okay, yeah, those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have had a lengthy conversation with both Pam Hall, and I want to sincerely appreciate Pam for the time that she has put into this. I think we had probably almost an hour-long teleconference meeting where she explained to me her position on this item, and I think made some valid points. But the manager and I met on Monday and went through this item. And so I've heard extensively on both sides of the issue, and I'm prepared today to move forward with the item. I think it's in our best interest to go ahead and establish this agreement so that we can have that right of way. I don't know that you can't plan far enough in the future. As I have told you all before, and as you know, I served on the original Blueprint Committee, and that was a process that started 20 years ago this year. And so we were planning for the future of the community even back then. And so I don't know that you can plan too far in the future for the transportation infrastructure that's going to be needed. And so I think this is a good move and the appropriate time to do it. So I'm in favor of the item, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. I am too. Commissioner Bryant?
Yes, let me say I am in favor of the item, and because I'm at the end here, I will say that I won't be redundant, but I do believe that planning is critical, and you really should plan for the future and then put things in place to execute to get us where we're going. So let me just say I fully support the item.
Is there a motion for staff recommendation?
Move acceptance.
Mayor Pro Tem has moved staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comment?
Mr. Mayor?
Sure. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to let you all know, for those who might not have recognized me without my glasses, Allison told me that people could see the reflection of my computer screen in my glasses. So that's why I took them off.
Hey, man, you just took it up a notch. That's all.
You all right. You're good.
Okay.
All those in favor of the staff recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Matlow, in fairness, we'll do a roll call vote. So Mayor Pro Tem?
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson?
Aye.
Commissioner Bryant?
Aye.
Commissioner Matlow?
Nay.
And the mayor is in favor. So it does pass 4-1. Commissioner Matlow in dissent. Any questions? Excellent. Let's move forward. We are on item 13.06. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, this item was added to your agenda, I believe, yesterday. It has come about as a result of the CDC's guidance last Friday indicating that they recommend that every American wear some kind of face covering or face mask. I think we all know how almost impossible it is to get face masks, whether it's PPE for medical professionals or first responders, or just simply some kind of covering for other people. And so we've been brainstorming an idea to locally source a large quantity of masks that we could provide our workforce, we could provide members of the community. Madam Attorney, I have stolen your analogy of equating it to sandbags. I think that is very appropriate, that we acquire things like this on behalf of our community when they're in large need. They may not be easily obtained. And so I'm requesting your authorization to move forward. We've identified about $64,000 in funds that were budgeted for direct expenses related to springtime events like Springtime Tallahassee, those things that we would have put labor into or bought supplies for, we're not going to do, obviously, this year. I would like to be able to use those dollars to procure what I believe we could purchase 25 to 30,000 locally made masks. These would not be medical grade. The CDC isn't not necessarily advising that for individuals, but they could be reusable, they could be washable, and I think they could be made for widespread distribution to our community. I mentioned in the agenda item that we've talked to a local company that's a manufacturer of socks, and so they're kind of in this industry. Divvy Up, they started up in Tallahassee not many years ago. I think they could help support that, but I also believe there is a room for others to maybe participate, and we've been in conversation with other people that are working actively to gather anybody with a sewing machine, frankly, to produce some kind of mask that the community could wear. So I'm seeking your approval to move forward, take the dollars that we're not going to spend related to several springtime events and work very, very quickly to get masks for our community.
Mr. Mayor.
Real quick, Mr. Cook, do we have any public comment on this item for the record?
We do not have any comment on this item.
Excellent. Mayor Pro Tem?
I wanted to say that I see this as a win-win. Here's an opportunity to use local businesses or individuals to spend these dollars that were set aside for events that are not going to take place. So I see this too as an economic infusion into our community to be able to do this and meanwhile creating a public benefit for individuals so that they have a better opportunity to comply with CDC guidelines for wearing a mask when going out on those rare occasions that you would go out. So I see this as a win-win. So I support the staff recommendation to do this.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Commissioner Bryant and then Commissioner Richardson.
Yes, let me also say that when I spoke with Reese on this item, I think it's extremely important, even though I do support the SOX team, that we also have outreach in the community, because there are many organizations that are making masks. And not only is it healthy for them to do something constructive, but it's also an opportunity for us to actually give accolades to them for what they're doing. So it is in the recommendation, but I just wanted to point that out, that we're looking big picture at the city in its totality. Thank you, sir.
I agree. Commissioner Richardson, Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to mention that I did have a local family reach out to me with an interest in making available about 10 sewing machines that were a part of one of their family members' seamstress business. That's now she is now in is having some physical problems, some health issues rather, and is no longer in that business. And so I talked with the city manager about the opportunity of maybe partnering with some community organizations. I've had conversations with Barbara Westcott with Women Wednesday. She has had some conversations with the Village Square staff. And so we're trying to put together some opportunities for some volunteers maybe to come together using those sewing machines to maybe be a part of this project, if we could fund it out of some of the funds from, just for the materials, I would imagine, not paying the volunteers, but just the materials to make the mask. So we're trying to put all of that together and hopefully come up with a workable partnership where we can get this done with some of our community partners. I read an article in the Democrat where there are some volunteers that are doing the very same thing or something very similar for residents at the Hope community and Westminster Oaks, if you all read that article in the paper. So we have an opportunity to do some partnerships, and these funds could go a long ways in that regard.
Great. Commissioner Matlow?
Thank you. And first off, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your leadership on this. I think this is a great item to really show the community, we need you to wear masks. We're taking it seriously. We need everybody to take this seriously whenever they go out. And I think, we're the perfect position to lead on it. And I think it's a great idea. There was a question I wanted to ask the city manager. I received an email. This money that we're allocating is based on internal money that we would have spent internally to support these festivals. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
So this isn't money that we were giving out to festivals that we're pulling back in. It's just what we would have spent internally.
Yes, sir. You're correct.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, and I support the initiative.
Commissioner Matlow, you bring up a great point that I think that once we get over the peak and come down and we get back to normal, there is a conversation for the commission to have about those large festivals that had to be canceled. And, the financial sustainability of those organizations being able to move forward. But great point bringing it up in regards to the money being internal. With that, the Mayor Pro Tem moves staff recommendation. I will second it. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes 5-0. Folks, we've got one more item, 13.07. However, it is 5 o'clock. So, Madam Attorney, do you recommend that I recess, or do we adjourn to open up the public hearing at 5 o'clock?
Better hurry up, whatever we do.
So you can go ahead and take this item if you wish and just announce that the public hearing will start at 5 after this item.
Okay.
That is more convenient.
Wonderful. Sounds great. Okay, then we are on 13.07. It is basically 5 o'clock. I got 4:59. For those that are tuning in to the public hearing, we will begin the public hearing immediately after this last item on policy formation and direction. 13.7, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. This item was also added to your agenda. It's very timely. Our team, Bena Ojitayo, who's been working on our behalf, has been working through the Leon County EOC work group to address the care of our homeless neighbors, and we've gotten to a solution, and I wanted to make sure we got it in front of you. And what we're seeking today is to allocate up to $300,000 for the strategy that has been defined. I would like Bena to kind of outline that strategy for us. Bena, will you go ahead and do that?
Sure thing. Thank you, City Manager, and Commissioners. What you have outlined both in the agenda item itself, but also in the attachment, is a detail of what our staff has been actively engaged with the county EOC to develop. As you know, the county, through in alignment with the CDC as well as with the Leon County Health Department, has identified the local homeless as uniquely vulnerable to COVID-19. So we have been engaged through what they have established as the COVID-19 Homeless Task Force. At this time, the emergency sheltering effort has become the main component of the mitigation. We've essentially been sustaining 2 phases of work in partnership with the county EOC and with the Big Bend Continuum of Care, which is our primary coordinating body. First phase was to support the shelters as they reduce the density significantly at their existing facilities. And what that translates to is going from something around 580 beds to 318. And so a lot of that work has been transporting residents to alternative non-congregate shelter locations, and we've been helping them to coordinate that move, whether that's in hotels or in individual apartments or temporary facilities to meet those guidelines. And then we've also identified the need to create an overflow facility. So for those individuals that are not symptomatic but are part of the clientele, we wanted to provide a space for them. So we've been working to develop a full plan and send that on to FEMA, and actually just received word just within the hour that FEMA has approved that sheltering plan and gave some really great feedback about it being one of the most comprehensive they've seen so far. So we are working directly with the providers, a host of other community partners, including the county health department, to make sure that we have spaces available. And at this point, we are asking for your approval to implement essentially 2 action items. One is to set up the congregate shelter site, and we're happy to have the commitment from the Salvation Army to use their facility, and staff will be ready to transition that facility as soon as we have your approval, and as well as to pursue the non-congregate option, which is through hotels, and we've been actively engaged with our local hotel businesses and identifying options for room blocks or even a complete facility buyout. We've been very pleased to see some positive responses in that direction. So again, this item seeks your approval to implement the emergency sheltering plan through the county EOC, and specifically to authorize the city manager to allocate $300,000 towards that execution.
Bena, thank you. Commissioner Richardson, before I come to you, let me just ask Mr. Cook, do we have any public comment on this item that's been entered into the record?
None.
None. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Richardson.
I thought I saw the city manager trying to get your attention.
I'm sorry. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just add that I spoke to the county administrator today regarding this solution, and he does plan to bring a very similar item to the county board next week. So excellent. That's really good news as we're partnering together.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that, Reese. Commissioner Richardson, you have virtually raised your hand. You have the floor.
I didn't think I raised my hand, but I am in favor of the item, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. It's a user error on our end. It's Thomas's fault. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Hey, we're doing great. I know we're 2 hours in, but we're doing well. Anybody have any comment or question on this? I think it's an incredible plan. Reese, again, thank you for stepping up to the plate. Under this state of emergency, we all know that the Emergency Operations Center is the one that runs points specifically on those that are experiencing homelessness in the coalition, but we have a role to play. Abena, you've been on all of the calls. I appreciate everything you're doing. This is a proactive measure. One of the things that I have heard loud and clear from the medical community is that we've got a couple of touch points that we've really got to take care of. Large gatherings, homeless community, faith-based community, and religious services over the holy days. These are the things that really can spike a widespread movement of COVID-19. So we've got to take care of those that are experiencing homelessness. This is a great plan, and I support it as well. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would. I move acceptance of staff recommendation.
And I see Commissioner Richardson seconding, and Commissioner Bryant, Commissioner Matlow, we're all in favor. Excellent. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Excellent. It passes 5-0 for the record. That ends policy formation and direction. Mr. City Manager, do we have anything else under policy formation and direction?
No, sir, but I'd like the guidance of the city attorney. You do have a couple CRA items that will be necessary to adjourn as the city commission and come back in as the CRA board. It seems that probably is appropriate at the conclusion of your public hearing process.
Correct. So what I was going to do was go straight and convene the public hearing. Looking for the guidance of city attorney, do I actually need to adjourn the city commission meeting to convene the public hearing? And obviously at the end of the public hearing, we will adjourn the public hearing to convene the CRA. I just want to make sure I'm legally in the right posture, Cassandra.
I think to proceed based on conducting the public hearings now, and then, which is a continuation of the city commission meeting, and then to adjourn the city commission meeting and convene the CRA.
Wonderful. And as long as my colleagues are okay with it, we will just do the sharing of ideas at the end of the CRA meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's now officially convene the public hearing. For those of you that are tuning into the public hearing, yes, we are about 5 to 7 minutes late. I do apologize. We've had a big agenda, and doing it virtually, we take our time, but nonetheless, we are officially at the public hearing. We have 4 items before us, and Mrs. City Attorney, 18.01, please.
Thank you. Item number 18.01, the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 20-0-09AA, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Chapter 17, Article 4 of the General Code of the City of Tallahassee to regulate a shared micro-mobility device program, amending purpose and applicability, amending definitions, providing for a shared micro-mobility device program on the public right-of-ways, providing for the vendor's responsibilities and obligations in operating a shared micro-mobility device system, providing for the operation and parking of the shared micro-mobility device, providing for the removal or relocating by the city, providing for the enforcement, fines, and penalties, providing for appellate rights, providing for indemnification and insurance, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing an effective date. The proposed ordinance would provide rules and regulations applicable to all participants of the micro-mobility device program in order to protect health, safety, and welfare. This ordinance was amended since first reading to state the ordinance would be effective upon the City Commission's selection of vendors for the micro-mobility device program. I have Kristen McCray available should we have any questions regarding this ordinance.
Wonderful. Mr. Cook, do we have any public comment for the record?
Do not.
Excellent. I will turn it over to my colleagues. Do we have any questions or a motion?
Move acceptance.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem has properly moved staff recommendation. I believe I heard a second from Commissioner Richardson.
Yes.
Further comment? Wonderful. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the table, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Passes 5-0. Item number 18.02, Madam Attorney.
Thank you. Item number 18.02 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 20-0-14AA, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, creating Article 3 entitled Conversion Therapy and Chapter 11 in the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Tallahassee related to conversion therapy on patients who are minors or vulnerable adults, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. At the December 4th, 2019 City Commission meeting, by consensus, the Commission directed the City Attorney to bring back for introduction an ordinance prohibiting the practice of conversion therapy on minors. Proposed ordinance number 20-0-14 was introduced on March 11, 2020. By unanimous vote of the City Commission, the proposed ordinance for public hearing on March 25, 2020 was amended to expand the specified definition of LGBTQIA+. In summary, the proposed ordinance prohibits conversion therapy within the city limits on persons under the age of 18 and on vulnerable adults, and prohibits the city from using the funds or resources to conduct or contract with others who conduct conversion therapy.
Mr. Cook, I know we've had public comment on this. How many pieces of public comment were entered into the record on this particular item?
Mayor, we received 40 comments during that period of time before we gathered the information and distributed it and posted it. In addition, on this particular item, we received another 4 comments during the day today. Those additional 4 comments will be made part of the official record, though you have not seen those in distribution yet.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you. All right, we'll turn it over to my colleagues. Questions, comments, motions?
Yeah, I'll start off.
Commissioner Matlow.
First off, thank you to everybody who sent in public comment. Rest assured, we did receive them. We did read them all. I know we can't be together. I'm obviously in favor of this. I have been since the beginning. Wish everybody could be here to celebrate really our city standing up for some of our most vulnerable people. And really, in the middle of a pandemic, I think this is even a better opportunity to really stand, united as one city. So I'll make a motion to accept the item.
Second.
And it's been properly seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there any other further comment? Wonderful. Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. 18.03, Madam Attorney.
Thank you. Item number 18.03 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 20-0-15. An ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Section 5-83 of the Tallahassee Land Development Code, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. This proposed ordinance is before you because the state of Florida has preempted local government regulations concerning trimming or removal of trees, which are deemed to be dangerous by a certified arborist or landscape architect and located on a residential property. The proposed ordinance acknowledges this state statutory provision preempting local regulation.
Excellent. Mr. Cook, do we have any public comment for the record on this item?
No, sir.
Excellent.
Move acceptance.
I'm sorry?
Move acceptance.
Been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. We are on item number 18.04.
Thank you. Item number 18.04, first and only public hearing on ordinance number 20-0-16, an ordinance amending the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, concerning the City of Tallahassee Community Redevelopment Agency, amending Section 6-52 concerning designation of the Board of Commissioners, amending Chapter 6, Article 3 relating to Redevelopment Trust Fund, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. by interlocal agreements between the City of Tallahassee, Leon County, and the City of Tallahassee Community Redevelopment Agency. The parties designated the members of the Tallahassee City Commission as the CRA Board of Commissioners and specified the contributions of the City of Tallahassee and Leon County to the CRA. Proposed ordinance reflects the changes as set out in the interlocal agreements.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Cook, do we have any public comment for the record on this item?
No, sir.
Excellent. I'll turn to my colleagues for any questions, motions, comments.
Mr. Mayor, question.
Mayor Pro Tem with a question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I know the answer, but I'm asking it for the public's consideration. Madam Attorney, this is basically cleaning up some language in what currently is in place. Is that correct?
That is correct. We had some archaic language in our code that hadn't been changed since the interlocal agreements entered into by the city and Leon County, and this ordinance cleans that up and corrects and makes the changes necessary.
Okay, thank you. Hearing the answer, I move acceptance of the recommendation.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem has properly moved the item, seconded by Commissioner Bryant. Any further comment? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Madam Attorney, do we have any other items to come before us during the public hearing?
No, there are no more items for public hearing.
Excellent. Well, then I will go ahead and adjourn the City Commission. Well, before I do that, let me just triple check. Madam Attorney, Mr. Manager, Mr. Cook, do we have any other items to come before the Tallahassee City Commission at this City Commission meeting?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Excellent. Wonderful job. So I will adjourn the City Commission meeting. I am calling to order the City of Tallahassee CRA Board meeting. We have two items on the CRA Board meeting, 15.01 on consent. Let me give Wayne a second to go ahead and get turned on and tuned in as CRA Executive Director. You with me, Wayne?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Do I have a motion for consent?
Move acceptance.
Excellent. It's been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by Commissioner Bryant.
Mr. Mayor?
I was going to ask Mr. Cook, do we have any public comment on this item?
Apologize for interrupting you. That is exactly what I was going to say. You did have two comments on this item, both received, distributed, and posted prior to today's meeting.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Motion to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. The only item before the CRA Downtown District Policy Formation and Direction is 16.01. Mr. Tedder?
Yes, sir. Mayor and Commissioners, in March in 2018, prior to the removal of the amphitheater support buildings at Cascades Park, the CRA Board set aside about $125,000 for city and county sponsored, co-sponsored events at the Cascades Park that would utilize the amphitheater support space. So when the North American Properties development was approved, part of that was demolishing the amphitheater support space. So the dollars were set aside to allow those events that utilized the area before and would in the future utilize the amphitheater support space, provide a funding source for them to accommodate facilities to offset the reduction or the removal of the amphitheater support space. Since that time, we've had a number of additional events that kind of signed up and were created at the park. We are now at a point where we only have about $1,000 left in that account. We expect about another 8 events to occur this year. Some of those events have already been posted and been canceled. Some of those events that's been canceled have already incurred costs that are non-refundable. So the request is that we replenish the funding of $140,000 to allow for the funding of the future events, the city and county co-sponsored events, as well as provide a funding source for those non-refundable costs that created with the cancellation of the events. I did identify a little bit more dollars, and I think after the COVID-19 crisis has left our community, I wanted to provide some additional money in that fund. So as our community wants to gather and recreate the opportunities to reconnect, that we would have some additional funding to support those events should we have those. So with that, staff is recommending approval of $140,000 of funding for the amphitheater support facility.
Thank you, Mr. Tatter. Mr. Cook, do we have any public comment for the record, sir?
That I wanted to be sure we give some appreciation to the communications department. I know it seems like a long time since you met last, but the opportunity to meet in this fashion wasn't that long ago. And so appreciate the support of the city attorney on helping us on what we can and need to do. And then Allison and her team turned around in short order, helped us with a process that would both communicate to the public and allow for their input. And I didn't want the city attorney and communications to go unappreciated on that particular matter.
Jim, we're on 16.01. Do you have any public comments specifically on that item, sir?
No, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. Moving into comment, motions, questions from city commissioners on 16.01.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Mayor, and actually for interim director, this is the 140,000 would be for the downtown CRA, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, for the purposes that you have outlined here. Okay, that answers my question. I will move acceptance of the recommendation.
Been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem. I will second the motion. Any further comment?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Richardson.
A question for Wayne. Wayne, are these funds also to help those organizations like Word of South and Southern Shakespeare with the losses that they have had to incur as a result of their events being canceled?
Yes, sir. I apologize if I wasn't specific about the events, but yes, if you look at your attachment 1, we list the 8 events that we have known, and any of those that have incurred expenses that are non-refundable, these dollars would allow that to be paid for.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other comment or question? Mayor Pro Tem has made the motion in favor of staff recommendation. I have seconded it. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Mr. Tatter, do we have anything else to come before the CRA today?
No, sir, we do not.
All right, colleagues, if we have an opportunity, let's consider this the sharing of ideas of both the City Commission and of the CRA. Everybody gets the opportunity. Mayor Pro Tem, I will start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It would probably be best to go ahead and close the CRA and then just and reconvene as the City Commission.
Okay. And seeing how what we'll talk about will probably be City Commission business anyway. Although we do have sharing of ideas in the CRA, but we will adjourn the CRA meeting and reconvene the City Commission meeting. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 quick items. One, hopefully by now you have received a flyer to invite you to attend a conference call that I'm sponsoring with Congressman Al Lawson for the 2020 stimulus package. There are a number of questions, and I saw him over in Quincy the other day trying to address some of those. So I thought it'd be a great idea for folks to get on a conference call with him. And I want to thank his office for obliging us so quickly to be able to do this, because there are a lot of questions and people are really confused. And I think that it would be good to hear from our congressman on that. So that call will be tomorrow at 4 p.m. The flyer is on my city page as well as my personal page, and it has been sent. Our communications office, thanks to the best communication director on planet Earth, for helping get that information out. That's Allison Ferris. She's the bomb. She and her staff. And the second thing is the city manager and I, and maybe some of you have been talking about a way to honor one of our former mayors in the city. And we were going to discuss that at the commission meeting that we weren't able to have. And then all of this COVID business happened. But I want us to not lose sight and just keep in mind that our mayor, former mayor, Dorothy Inman Johnson, played a huge role in some of the big, progressive, and bold things that has happened in our city. And I am proud to be standing on her shoulders because, as you know, before I got elected, she had been the only African-American female elected to the city commission. And so to recognize her work that she's done, and so it remains in history, we had talked about doing this during Women's History Month. But as you know, we got overtaken by COVID. But there is to be a park named for Dorothy Inman Johnson right here in Tallahassee, right behind City Hall at Clayman Plaza, currently known as Clayman Plaza, but the park area will be named for her. And I want to thank City Manager Reese Gold, his staff, Ashley Edwards, and the Parks Advisory Board for agreeing to let's work together to make this happen. I'm very pleased and proud, and so is she, that this is going to happen. We know we can't come together right now to celebrate, but as soon as we are able to do so, there will be a full-fledged dedication. And I just want to say how pleased and proud I am of following in her footsteps and to have her name on display in a very prominent place downtown. So as children come to the park to read and do their field trips, as we see them back there, it will be just fitting that Mary, wasn't she your former teacher? Weren't you one of her favorite students?
I was her favorite student.
Oh, you was her favorite student. Well, the park will be right behind City Hall at Clayman Plaza will be named for her. And she did a lot of work to make sure that Clayman Plaza happened. And so I'm very pleased that this is going to happen. Thank you, City Manager Reese, again, for your leadership in this effort. And thank you, Ashley Edwards, and all of your folks and everybody who's worked to make this happen. You know, it takes a village, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one item. I just want to really congratulate our community for coming together to get all of these loan documents submitted to the federal government and then our grant applications done. And I'll say this again next week because we wanted to focus on ensuring that mom and pops, people who actually would get those applications and be overwhelmed and not apply, would actually have some support to apply and receive funding. So kudos to Daryl on the county side and our staff, really extensive on the city side, as well as the chambers who came. Katrina Tuggerson comes to mind. I was on several conference calls with her, just trying to ensure that people understood what was available and how we would go about helping them, technical assistance to get their applications completed. To complete community effort, and thanks so much for those who participated and those who actually came to help provide the technical assistance. That's it for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I want to commend both Farm Share and Second Harvest for the tremendous work that they have done in this community over the past several weeks now. Well, actually annually, but certainly during these difficult times in providing food items for those who, in a lot of instances, are in desperate need. Colleagues, I have volunteered for these events now several times during the last couple of weeks. I was at FAMU today, Leonard Wesson yesterday, will be at Pine View tomorrow. The lines are getting longer and longer, and it does not discriminate. There are Lexuses, Mercedes-Benzes, Cadillacs, every type of automobile and person from throughout this community that's coming through those lines now. And so I certainly want to thank those organizations for the tremendous job that they do in providing those essentials to people in our neighborhood. It's going to get worse, y'all, but we've just got to pray that they continue to exist. And if you feel like contributing financially or being a volunteer, I'm sure both organizations, both Second Harvest and Farm Share, would welcome that, however you want to be involved. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention here this afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for highlighting those nonprofits, Commissioner Richardson, that, they're doing great work. And, the need is greater now more than it has been. The three things I want to talk about, one, I think we've already checked off, is homelessness. I think Ben has done a great job, and we made great progress on that, and we'll keep updates on that. And the two other ones are the ones the mayor has already proposed, which is help for nonprofits and help for utilities. I think the deferment program we got in place is going to be a great help for a lot of people who can use that, who may be just out of work for a short period of time, but other people still don't know when they'll get back to work until their employers decide. So I do think it would be appropriate to have some sort of resource, if it's through Blueprint, if it's through a nonprofit who can support utility relief, as well as helping the nonprofits. I do support that coming back to OEV. I think what I would like to do as a motion is to direct the city manager to work with the county administrator to find funding for nonprofits and utility relief, either jointly through county and city government or collectively through the OEV.
Motion on the table.
Second.
Properly seconded. Excellent. Let's have some discussion. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you want to provide comment? Mr. Matlow, and in fact, what we supported unanimously at the IA meeting was, support for both nonprofits, but also individuals in regards to utility relief above and beyond the utility plan. We are hamstrung as a utility department from. Just walk us through what can and can't be done. I agree with Commissioner Matlow that it needs to come back through the OEV and not out of the city utility budget, because we can't do it that way, correct?
Yes, sir. And I think that was Commissioner Matlow summarized that correctly. And when you met as the Blueprint IA, the discussion was generally that the dollars within the enterprise have to be used kind of across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, the situation we're in is a very targeted, need-based situation. So if you want to do that, you need an outside funding source. I think Commissioner Matlow just summarized a couple options, one being OEV related dollars, another being city and county general revenue dollars. And I don't know that he said general revenue, but something like that, outside of the enterprise. Commissioner, is that correct?
Yeah, that would be my understanding. Just, get with the county administrator, come up with an idea of how we can make this happen collectively.
Yeah, and certainly I'd be happy to do that. I would add this. I believe if it's, and maybe this goes without saying, but if it's an OEB solution or even a city-county solution, we do have Talcott Electric provides utilities to about 25,000 households and businesses. It is a material amount in our community. They should be included, in my opinion. And then you do have utilities that are not served by the city outside the city's limits. So I would recommend we also look broadly, and I certainly, with your approval, we would include that in the nature of the discussion.
Yes, that works for me.
Okay, great.
Did we just? Excellent. I think my computer just flaked out. Are we good?
I believe so. I've got clear direction unless there's alternative direction or.
I agree. Okay. Commissioner Matlow has a good motion on the table, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Commissioner Matlow, you have the floor.
Yeah, that's all I have. First off, I just want to thank everybody on this board for stepping up in that last meeting on this item. I think it's very important to a lot of people, and I'm glad we're still united on it. It's a good look for our city.
I agree. Good point. Good point. All right, so this wraps it up. First, I want to thank you, my colleagues, for, look, golly, this board's been through some crazy times, that's for sure. And look, this seems to be the new normal for the foreseeable future on how we're going to be conducting business. I appreciate your patience with me while we're doing this virtually, and we'll get better at it. But thank you for your dedication. Y'all are doing a great job spreading the message. We're all on the same message. Right now, we have got to try to flatten this curve, encourage people to stay home and wear their masks. I'm really pleased with what the city has done to this point proactively. We've got some great plans moving forward. Reese, you and your team, and Cassandra, you and your team, and Jim, you and your team, and Dennis, thank you for everything that y'all are doing here in Tallahassee. We'll stay together. We're going to make it through. It's going to get rough, but we're going to make it through. With that, and with nothing else before.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I give a special shout out, because y'all know this is one of my favorite areas, to the technology and innovation area, particularly Tim Davis and his crew, and with the personal touch that we've had with Harold to make sure that we can do these meetings. Even when we were doing the IA meeting last week, it was his team, it was led by Harold, to make sure we're able to do this. So you always got to give IT a shout out. So thank you all for the work that you're doing.
I agree. Hey, and by the way, I don't know if y'all are watching, for a moment of brevity, you saw the meeting of the mayor out in California or Texas that forgot to turn his microphone off before to the restroom. I promise you I will always turn mine off. And on a serious note, you're seeing some public meetings that are being interfered with, the Zoom bombers and everything. And Harold, you've got us on a great platform. You've got us protected. And on a serious note, we certainly do appreciate that. And Diane's absolutely correct. We couldn't do it without you. Now, one more thing in a little idea that just came up. So Cassandra won the prize today with her nice backdrop behind her. So I'm not saying we do this for the IA meeting, but for the next city commission meeting, I want to have a little competition with my colleagues who can come up with the most creative backdrop behind them for a little inspiration.
You don't like my real living backdrop back here?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Absolutely.
With a picture of my grandmother behind me. Hey, okay, I'm in second place. Second place.
There we go. There we go. Hey, love serving with each and every one of you. Thanks for everything that you do. We stand adjourned.
Stay safe, everybody.
Have a good night.
Good night.